Hey guys, it's Alex with Dolphins NYC, ready to break down Week 16 of the FFL season, which is a fantasy Super Bowl in most leagues. Before we get to this week's matchups, I need to apologize for a bad call last week.
I'm sorry, so sorry.
Ben Roethlisberger threw for 500 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Green Bay Packers, just a week after throwing for 200 yards and no scores against the Cleveland Browns. Sometimes you just look at those stats and say, what the With the Colts likely resting their starters this week, you'll be tempted to bench Peyton Manning and Reggie Wayne. But as I said in our very first video, you should never get cute and bench your studs. And after all, a half of Wayne and Manning is better than anyone you have on your bench.
Wayne's World, party time, accident.
Alex Smith is still a free agent in 2/3 of fantasy leagues, and this week against the Detroit Lions, he could just lead your team to a championship. It's a crazy fantasy world we live in. With Michael Turner likely out this week, Jason Snelling makes for a rock-solid number 2 running back against the Bills, who've already given up 18 rushing touchdowns in 14 games this year. You're probably in bad shape already if you're relying on Lee Evans or Terrell Owens in your fantasy Super Bowl. But with Brian Brome starting this week for Buffalo, neither player should be in your lineup. Normally against Tampa Bay, Pierre Thomas will be a top running back option. But with just 6 carries last week against the Cowboys, he's stuck in a timeshare that makes for a high risk and not that high of a reward flex option. With Sammy Morris and Fred Taylor likely to play this week, Lawrence Maroney makes for a low-end option at running back against the Jaguars, who've given up 3 rushing touchdowns in their last 6 games. You should already be starting Michael Crabtree against Detroit, but consider Josh Morgan, who has 6 catches in 3 of the last 4 weeks. If you need a wide receiver, he's definitely worth a flyer. It's tough to figure out which Raiders running back will get the call, but after a big performance last week, Michael Bush makes for a solid flex play against the Cleveland Browns. Another deeper sleeper is Demetrius Williams of the Baltimore Ravens. If he gets another start this week, he could have a good day against the Steelers, who've actually given up the 5th most fantasy points to wide receivers this year. Now it's time to answer your questions. Thank you. Dear Alex, I'm a huge fan of the Monday Night Football segment, Come On Man. What will be your Come On Man from last week and why? Thanks, Mitch. Well, my segment didn't actually happen on the football field. It happened right here at Dolphins NYC. You see, I recommended Arian Foster of the Houston Texans as a sleeper option because I thought he'd have a big game. You know what happened? He fumbled on one of his first plays, was benched for the rest of the game, and finished with a -1 for the week. Come on, man!
Come on, man.
I'd like to point out one final thing. The 2 co-founders of Dolphins NYC, Igor and Michelle, are facing each other in the Super Bowl of their fantasy league. I'd like to wish both of them the best of luck. I'm not biased at all, and I'd be happy to see either one of them win. Not biased at all. Seriously, either one, totally cool if they win it. Well, that's it for this week. I hope you guys have enjoyed this season of What's Your Fantasy. Be sure to check out DolphinsNYC.com for all of your latest Dolphins news, and send us any questions, requests at DolphinsNYC@gmail.com. We've got a huge matchup against the Texans this week, and we need to win to have any chance of making the playoffs. If you're in the New York City area, stop by 3rd and Long on 35th Street and 3rd Avenue. Thanks for all the support this season, and go Dolphins!